Football, football, football. I love Wait, no, proper football. Can I get some decent pictures out there, somebody? Anyone? Thank you. The joy of victory, the roar of a huge crowd, winning trophies and £1 million players that are household names are just some of the things I miss out on as a Mansfield Town fan. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm Rob from JTRpodcast.com and I'm going to show you how to play the football game. This is a game for 2 to 4 players, plays at about 90 minutes, obviously. It's designed by Simon, Mark and Joe Pearson, is published by the London Board Games Company. Players will each take charge of a football team and the player who runs their team that exceeds the fans' expectations the best will win. To set up, shuffle the event, tactics, manager, injury and football cards into their own deck. Deal 7 footballers to each player and they discard and draw one at a time until they have at least one defender and one attacker. If the total value of the team is less than 10, players will discard and redraw until they meet or exceed that value. When complete, players will take the relevant class cards depending on the total of their team. Deal 2 manager cards to each player, players choose one and take the money according to the manager card. They also take a number of tactics cards depending on the manager rating plus minus their modifier on their class card. For example, Dougie gets 9 million money and 6 tactics cards plus another 3 tactics cards for managing a Class A club. Lay 5 footballers out for the transfer market. The start player is the team with the highest value, ties are broken with a roll of the injury die. The game is divided into 2 phases, pre-match and match day. During the pre-match, all players can freely rearrange from their first team into the subs bench. There are 2 compulsory actions the active player must take in the pre-match phase. Firstly, any players in the unavailable section are moved to the subs bench and are available for selection. Then, they must roll the injury die for each injured player. If the roll is less than the injury's severity number, add an injury clip which will give +1 to rolls on future turns. If the roll is equal to or greater than the number, the injury is discarded and the player is available for selection immediately. There are a few optional actions the player can take too. For 1 million, they can scout for new players by discarding the cards in the transfer market and drawing 5 more. Players can be sold for their value shown in silver, plus or minus 1 million for each good or bad form token on them. For example, this flaresome forward can be sold for 5 million plus an extra million for the good form marker on the card. Injured players can be sold at their value minus their ability. The injured flaresome forward can be sold for 2 million, 5 million, minus his ability of 3. Players can be bought from the transfer market in their cost in gold and are immediately available for first team selection. They can discard their entire hand and draw 4 tactics cards. If the team's current league position is below a certain point depending on the class card, they can sack their manager once per game. Simply discard the manager card and any tactics cards from their hand. Remove any 3 form markers from their players, draw 2 managers and choose one, drawing the tactics cards as shown on the manager card. They take the sack token to show they have done their once per game sacking. Once the active player has completed all of their actions, in turn order all players must set their match day team and confirm. Then, in turn order starting with the active player, players can play any number of manager abilities or tactics that say pre-match. For example, Eric can place a good form mark on one of his defenders and possession play can be played on a yellow player in the first team. Some abilities can only be used twice per game, put the half season marker on it when this is activated. Once complete, it's time for match day. The active player rolls the 4 dice. The 6-sided dice affect all players, the 12-sided dice only affect the active player. First, all players resolve pre-match tactic cards that affect form and add or remove form counters as required. For example, Feel the Pressure will add a form marker to one of the players that didn't score. Each first team player scores for each roll of the die of their colour. For example, this roll is yellow and blue, so the blue and yellow players will score. If the same colour is rolled on both d6s, those players score twice and each manager draws a tactics card. In turn order, players now play matchday tactics cards and manager abilities. For example, Gavin lets you reroll one or both matchday dice and Creative Force will add a good form marker to a yellow player that scored. Players total their matchday score then move on the league table appropriately. For example, yellow and blue was rolled, the player has no yellow players but 2 blue players, both score for a total of 8 so they hold their position in the league. Then the active player will resolve the event injury and knock dice in that order. For events, draw an event card and resolve it, the number rolled on the die will affect the event itself. For example, new stadium sponsor will give you millions equal to triple the number rolled on the event die. An injury will affect the player in the rolled slot. Remove any form markers from that player, place them in the injured area and draw and place an injury card on them. For a knock, move the affected player to the unavailable selection of the player's board. At the end of the round, the first player moves clockwise and players draw a tactic card if their hand is empty. If all players have been the active player once, move the round tracker 1 space. At the end of rounds 2, 4 and 6, players will score. Check the team's current league position on the class card and score that many points. For example, this Class A team is in the top 6 after 2 rounds, so will score 4 points. At the halfway point at the end of the 3rd round, remove all half-season markers that have been used and discard the transfer market and draw 5 more cards. All players gain millions depending on their manager's budget, and tactics cards equal to the manager's tactics value plus and minus any modifiers. After scoring in the final round, players score an additional 1 point per 10 million they have left over. For each player in the squad fewer than 7, they lose 2 victory points. The player with the most points wins. That's the football game, a dice rolling football management sim. Please like this video if you found it useful, share it to let others know about it, and subscribe to the channel for more how to play videos as well as other board game related content. You can find me on Twitter at JTR Podcast and find my blog and podcast at jtrpodcast.com. I've been Rob, aka Jesta ThaRogue. They think it's all over. It is now.